We're back here on the Sports Inferno on More Rock Radio 91.5. Justin Hoff with you. And now it's time to talk about Alex Rodriguez and the latest steroid saga that's really putting a black eye over baseball. Rodriguez's suspension came down yesterday, and reaction has been coming in from all over. So we'll talk about that, and the effects of A-Rod's Hall of Fame chances now with the latest suspension. Also want to talk about whether or not baseball is cleaner now than what it was 5 or maybe 10 years ago. And if it isn't completely clean, which we know it isn't, what baseball has to do to clean the game up entirely. Or at least get one step closer to doing that. We'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about the suspensions that did come down yesterday. 13 players in all were linked to the Biogenesis Clinic, which included A-Rod. With the exception of A-Rod, though, all the players have accepted their suspensions and gave up their right to appeal, and a few of those players could rejoin their teams later on this season if they make the postseason, if they make a playoff run. So on Twitter and Facebook over the last day or so, several Detroit Tiger fans have weighed in on this exact topic, talking, of course, about Johnny Peralta, the shortstop, all-star this season for the Tigers, having a great season, but he is one of the 13 players linked to Biogenesis and was suspended for 50 games. So, having said all that, Peralta, the debate going around him right now is, will he ever play again for the Tigers, and do you want to see him come back to play for Detroit? Some have said, you know what, he's a cheat, he's a fraud, he took steroids, HGH, we don't want to see him back no matter what. No matter if he makes the team better, if we have a better chance of winning the first World Series since 1984, I don't care, I don't want to see a cheater on the field for my Tigers. That's how one side of the equation looks at it. The other side, the flip side of that coin, is, you know what? Johnny Peralta makes our team better. He did his service. He did his time, his 50 games, and it's over with. He said he was sorry, and let's move on. But he gives us the best chance to win, so I want him back out on the field. Those are the two ways you can look at it. And, of course, this is not just with Johnny Peralta. There's a few other players out there in the 13 players that were suspended, which could come back to rejoin their teams later on in October. The way that I look at this is quite simple. It's the latter point right there. I want to win a World Series. As a fan of the Detroit Tigers, the best chance to do that is to have all the pieces on the table, and that includes your all-star shortstop, Johnny Peralta. So get him back on the field. That's the way I look at it. And I think majority agrees there that, you know what, you forget about the 50 games. He did it, and now let's get him back on the field, and let's hope that he can contribute. It's going to be difficult after sitting out for 50 games to come back and play at that all-star level. But moving on from there, aside from that, baseball, as we said at the top, is the game cleaned up entirely? Absolutely not. Baseball, though, is doing a good job, I believe. And I think the fans and everyone out there, media alike, they're thinking the same way, that baseball's doing a good job of cleaning this game up. And they're working on getting there. It's a very difficult process, very comprehensive, complex. It takes a long time. It just doesn't happen at the snap of a finger and it's fixed tomorrow. That's not how this is going to go down. And we've seen that, but baseball's in a much better position now than when it was in 98 with McGuire and Sosa, in 2003 with Barry Bonds, and then in 2008, a year after the Mitchell report came out, it's in a much better position than then. But here's a question I want to pose to you, and of course you can send us your thoughts on Twitter or Facebook or give us a call later on the show. Are we 100% certain that Chris Davis, current home run leader in the major leagues, is not on any performance-enhancing drugs? Davis has had a remarkable season. You look at his numbers, his stats. You can check him out on ESPN.com. Go to his profile page, and you look at the numbers, and, man, he's had a breakout year. And previous guys, you look at that with Brett Boone, Brady Anderson, a few guys that were linked to steroids a while ago. those guys had breakout years too, and you never know. You always question that. And I would hate to say that Chris Davis would be taking steroids, but you never can be 100% certain for any professional athletes out there. And it's not like they're going to come out during a record-breaking season and just put the brakes on it and say, you know what, yeah, I have been taking steroids. That's why I'm having such a great season, and man, I'm loving it. And our team's doing great, and the fans are loving me, and I'm loving being the leader in Major League home runs. But yeah, I am cheating. No one's ever going to say that. That's never going to happen. So another question is, will this be the final major steroid scandal with baseball? Simple answer to that, no. I'm afraid not. I feel like there's always going to be something out there. The big question for me was, is baseball doing a good job at cleaning up the game? And I feel like they have, but I feel like they can do an even better job. You look at it, are they cleaner than 98, 2003, 2008? Yes. So I think baseball doing a good job. Bud Selig, the Players Association, and Major League Baseball as a whole, they're moving towards the right direction. But to complete this process, what they need to do is stiffer penalties. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But the one topic I want to get to right now is Alex Rodriguez. Should he and will he be inducted into the Hall of Fame? I've thought long and hard about this, and sports writers across the country that weigh in and, of course, vote for the Hall of Famers in Cooperstown, some of them have always kind of stood that one line, one side or the other, right or left. If a player has been directly found with any sort of performance-enhancing drugs, they're off the list. I'm not going to vote for them ever. And then there's other individuals who kind of do it by a case-by-case basis and break it down on whether or not they feel like that player would have made the Hall of Fame anyways, whether or not he took steroids. And that's a very difficult claim to start making, because then you have to look at what year they start taking them. And then if you don't know what year, was their whole career with steroids? That's a question you could have for Alex Rodriguez. But Barry Bonds is one of those guys that a lot of people feel like was a Hall of Famer before he started to take steroids and then just turned into the greatest home run hitter in the history of Major League Baseball. So that's one thing you have to answer and kind of think about. But I've thought long and hard about this. And the one thing we have to say is you never will know for sure who took what, when they took it, how long they took it, and how much it helped them. It's important, I think, for me, when I think about this scenario, in this case, this process, I weigh in those items a lot. We'll never know for sure who took what, when they took it, how long they took it for, and how much it helped them. I thought that was worth repeating. But we look at Clemens, Bonds, McGwire, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez. In my book, they all go in. But they're going in with an asterisk. And that, for me, is very, very important. They do not go in unless they have that asterisk. But I feel like the records, the memories, as fans during this era, I think it's very difficult to take away some of the greatest players and say they're not going to go in because it was a steroid era and we don't put anybody in from that era, or very limited individuals. And who's to say that the guys that we do put in, who we just haven't found out that they have taken steroids or haven't, who's to know if they really didn't take them? So I feel like you have to weigh these guys and the body of work that they put in. And I feel like Clemens, Bonds, McGwire, Manny Ramirez, and Alex Rodriguez deserve to go in based on the body of work, the numbers they put up, the home runs, the strikeouts. They had to go out there and perform. They had to go out there and get the job done. And they had to go out there and put up these Hall of Fame numbers. As we said before, we're never going to know how much steroids helped them. But if, in fact, we do know that they took them, put them in there, but make sure you have an asterisk on it, because no one's ever going to forget that. And 20, 30, 40 years from now, youngsters go in there, they talk to their dad about this player and talk to their grandpa, and grandpa's going to make sure that they know about the steroid era. But they're also going to know about those players, because it's just too difficult to take guys out of the books. I've always been on that decision that the fans, I feel like you're paying the penalty here. We saw some great players, and I want to see these guys go in the Hall of Fame. And I think the guy at the top of the list there is Barry Bonds. Home run career leader. I mean, that's a guy that has to go in. It's just hard for me to fathom a Hall of Fame without Barry Bonds. For me, it just doesn't add up. He has to go in there no matter what with the steroid talk. He is a Hall of Famer, but a Hall of Famer with an asterisk. So the final item I mentioned at the top is cleaning up baseball once and for all. What does baseball need to do? Major League Baseball and the Players Association. What do they need to do to clean up the game once and for all? For me, it's quite simple. Stiffer penalties. Stiffer, and I mean very stiff and difficult. First-time offenders for me has to be instantly a year ban. 1 year, 365 days. Second-time offenders, lifetime ban. The ultimate. I think you have to go there. I think we're at the point now where that's the next step. That's the process that cleaning this game up completely is making it very scary for individuals out there. If I get caught, there's going to be some serious consequences, serious repercussions. There needs to be those, and right now I don't feel like there is. 50 games into 100, I think that's soft. David Stern a couple months ago mentioned that he needs to clean up flopping better. They tried a few things this year. It took them a long time. I mean, we've been talking about flopping since about 2002 with Manu Ginobili, 2002, 2003, right in there, and Reggie Miller did it in the late 90s. We've been talking about flopping for a long time, and it's still in the game. And some of these foreign-born players coming over here have really brought it into the game. And I don't like flopping as much as any of you like flopping out there, but it's easy. To eliminate flopping, you create stiffer penalties. You don't create 1, 2, 3, 4 game suspensions. You create some bad penalties, and that will keep players away from doing those items. So I think that's one thing to look at. You want to eliminate items, flopping in NBA, steroids in baseball, you have to go with the stiffer penalties. And let's hope that, as we go forward, we're all tired of hearing about steroids in baseball. From Belko to the Mitchell Report, now to biogenesis, this needs to be taken care of once and for all. And I truly feel the stronger the penalties are, the better chance that we're going to get to a day where baseball is 100% clean. So it's about stiffer penalties, and hopefully that's what's in the future for Major League Baseball and steroids.